NSFW, what plot lines would we see in a dark Pixar universe? All the people who were left behind in Wall-E and had to survive it out. Cars, but it's Mad Maximum. Inside Out of a person with PTSD and a substance abuse problem. Sid gets his own torturous Toy Story spin-off. Toy Story. Once the toys become landfill, they see that they have finally been thrown away and live in this trash heap. Jerry's game, where an old man is playing Russian roulette with himself. Edit. Damn people. I thought I was morbid just for having the idea. You guys have expanded on this and such way that frightens me a bit. Home follows the family of a boy whose father loses his job and then their house. They live in a motel for a while until they are eventually out on the streets. The entire story is told from the perspective of the boy, as he is eventually the only one left in the end. That lamp is the protagonist as a secret serial killer. Monsters Incorporated. But they collect screams from kids they torture and kill. Old Prospector was totally banging Jess before Woody came around. A Daredevil style show in the world of The Incredibles. Coco. But it is set during the apocalypse. So with nobody to remember them, everyone starts to fade away forever. Down. Carl spirals into depression after losing his wife and murdering Russell and travels into the underworld in his sinking house of despair. Lightning McQueen hits rock bottom after a major crash during a race and gets hooked on low-grade gasoline with fuel additives. A Cars prequel where we learn what happened to all the humans. Toy Story for adult toys. Toy Story 2. But Jess wasn't lost or outgrown by the daughter. Instead, she was the only witness to the child abuse and murder by a heavily alcoholic father to Emily. The plot revolves around somehow getting evidence to the police, with a major point being Jess even able to talk about it. Imagine all the toys around the world that bear silent witness to the horrors of human life. Edit. Many thanks for the coin, kind stranger. Monsters FO Real. We're in a utopian monsterland. Superstar monsters are pushed to kill their victims to get maximum premium scream out of them. When one kid gets away, the monsters have to hunt it down, become friends with her in the process, and have to kill her in the end to maintain the status quo. A war between humans and toys. I had a dream about that once and now I'm obsessed with the idea. A Bug's Life, only instead it's about a colony of ants that survived a nuclear holocaust that completely wiped out humans and their struggle in the wasteland to survive. What happened to the rest of the humans that did not show up in Wall? The ones stuck on uninhabitable Earth and the ones whose ships died or had robots that successfully overthrew them. Mr. Incredible. His perfectly well-bred ruling family dynasty and the other supers run a world government where the superpowered minority uses their powers to suppress, subjugate, and slaughter the rest of the world as they please for their own personal benefit. They make the laws, enforce them, but do not follow them. The people are like slaves or serfs to their supermasters. Dissenters are outright killed, tortured, or mysteriously disappear. Syndrome is a freedom fighter who wants to make everyone super enough to create an equal society by giving his technology to the powerless majority, but ultimately is thwarted and brutally killed after being ganged up on in public by the Incredibles family and Frozone, teaching everyone the lesson that you can never be on the same footing as a super unless you were born one, and freedom only exists for the powerful, no matter how hard you try or how smart you are. However, the fight for humanity's freedom is not over. Syndrome's close friend and longtime admirer Incredibles to spoilers, Evelyn Dever, manages to convince the majority of humanity to rebel against the super world dominance using the power of mass media and the freedom of expression. Together they start a world revolution that aims to reorganize the world power structure and use the newly invented technology along with the works of Syndrome to fight a war on a scale never seen before. However, they are easily wiped out due to their inherent inferiority, and the supers use the very same technology Evelyn and Syndrome created to once again put humanity in shackles and controlled by the supers forever, though now secure with mass surveillance, advanced weaponry, and a pro-regime media that only shows superhero shows / movies and press superhero news, as directed by the Incredibles and their allies. A Finding Nemo type film starring Dory, but she is a much more elderly fish now, and her short-term memory loss has gradually worsened into severe dementia. Over the course of the film, Nemo helps her recollect the best memories of her life before she smiles and finally passes on. Ratatouille. Only it takes place in a maximum security prison. Alfredo Linguini is serving hard time after working 4 years as a hitman for the mob. He meets Remy when he starts working in the kitchen, and together they do their best to try and make the shitty meals for the prisoners a little bit better. Children being shot at with automatic weapons? Oh wait, Incredibles did it. Implied mass murder? Shit, Incredibles did that. 2. Human remains? Check. Main character is made to believe his whole family is dead? Check. The first Incredibles is by far the superior movie because it wasn't afraid to get dark and dangerous. Down. So you know how Up opens with what is clearly a miscarriage? Imagine a prequel revolving around the inevitable depression and their journey for Carl to truly understand it and together to rediscover how to love life despite this adversity. Kinda surprised nobody mentioned this, but if the shock collar plotline was kept in Zootopia it would not have been PG. More of a Disney one. But I came up with this idea with some friends a while ago. It is the origin story of Walt Disney, set in a old mental hospital, where various heroes and princesses are locked up and all have differing levels of psychosis, delusions or other problems. They are all looked after by the warden. Movie title: Mr. Disney, who exploits them and sells their stories to the nations as children's stories and fairy tales. And X200B. Belle Bestiality, Aurora Heroin Addict, Snow White multiple personalities, Seven Dwarfs. Ariel lost her legs in an accident at sea and is convinced if she can just get back to the ocean she could make a deal with the monster that took them to get them back. And X200B. There were more, but I can't remember them all right now. Monsters Incorporated. When monsters are discovered they kidnap/kill the family, and there is an evil scream business with the same goal of making kids fear, but they do not care about hurting and torturing them. The Bad Dinosaur. Like the Good Dinosaur, except they all act like real dinosaurs and not people. Lots and lots of blood. Skynet finally comes online, and WALLEUSND turns into a murderous version of Johnny 5, crushing people into meat cubes. Up. But Ellie was actually murdered, and Carl goes looking for the murderer, only to be overwrought and almost throwing himself over a waterfall. He is stricken with news from Doug that Carl is in fact the murderer. Ratatouille, but it's the Black Plague and all the humans die. Wreck-It Ralph stars in a porn game. Finding Nemo, but they never find Nemo, and the whole thing becomes about how Dory and Mullen fall in and out of love. Sort of like L'Avventura by Antonioni. Monsters Incorporated. That's it. Interdimensional horrors are consistently breaking through to our plane of existence. Where are these portals? In the bedrooms of children. Why are they doing this? To instill terror into the lives into the most vulnerable amongst us. Turn the perspective from the view of the monsters to the view of the humans, and it's a straight up horror movie. WALL-E. I want Wall-E and Eve take over all that's left of humans and go out in universe to capture and wipe out all the habitable planets who are ruining the universe. You can say I want Pixar's version of Brainiac Superman's supervillain. Inside Out in the mind of a psychopath. Joy is mania. Sadness is depression. Anger is psychotic. Fear is anxiety. Disgust is nausea. The climax of the story when Riley leaves home is actually when she tries to kill people, but her emotions have to stop her. Inside Out. From the perspective of being inside a sociopathic individual like, say, Dexter. Only instead of emotions, Peresi, it's more like impulses, logic, urges, artistic. Logic, voiced by someone who sounds like Anthony Hopkins, is the one who is always cool and collected. Urges wants to go off the leash. You get the picture. The question isn't how to keep him from killing. It's how to keep him from getting caught killing. A Bug's Life from the perspective of a colony of maggots living inside and eating a dead body. Zootopia. But years in the future, Judy's fame has faded and she's now a crooked detective with deep mob connections. There is a whole seedy underworld of weird sex clubs and drugs. The con artist Fox is trying to put her back on the straight and narrow as they investigate a serial killer. They introduce shock collars for predators in Zootopia 2. Snow White is imprisoned by the queen and tortured to make her ugly, and she goes delirious and makes up these 7 imaginary friends to keep her company. Eventually the queen can't stand that Snow White is still the fairest because beauty comes from the inside. So she cuts Snow White's heart out and eats it in hope to absorb the pureness of Snow White's heart. I know it's not Pixar though. Sorry. The short about the old man that plays himself in chess finishes the match to wake up in an insane asylum where he has been for the last 50 years. The movie then progresses as a mad doctor uses Oretroatmanso to cure the man, but ultimately kills him. The entire film uses classical chess theories to progress the battle between the old man and the staff until he is finally checkmated.